Hello, everybody. This is Tina, and welcome to my podcast, Steinway Hall. I first discovered Emmet Fox through Chuck Chamberlain's talk, A New Pair of Glasses. When Chuck recommended Fox's little booklet, The Golden Key, I went looking for it and absolutely fell in love with Emmet Fox and include his writings in my morning meditations. In the early days of AA, members often went together after meetings to hear Fox speak at Steinway Hall in New York. Even today, some groups still share his pamphlets alongside AA literature. Old timers remember how widely Fox's writings were used for guidance. Dr. Bob himself frequently recommended Fox's work, along with Henry Drummond's The Greatest Thing in the World. Simple, practical spiritual tools the fellowship relied on before AA had its own books. Fox taught ideas that blended naturally with what AA was discovering. Change begins by changing your thoughts. Love and forgiveness are central to spiritual growth. Resentment has to be cleared away. Live one day at a time, stay out of the past. He emphasized that thoughts are real things and that you don't have one kind of mind and another kind of life. His focus on love, releasing resentment, and living in the present became woven into AA's earliest spiritual approach, shaping a path that millions in recovery still follow today. Welcome, Kathleen from Colorado. And we are going to go through Emmet Fox's booklet, The Yoga of Love. I'm going to read a paragraph or two, and then we'll both have an opportunity to comment, and then we'll just keep moving through the booklet like that. So, do you want to say hi, Kathleen, before we get started?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for this podcast and what a great topic. Yoga of love. Yes, lots to learn here and talk about.
Okay, so the yoga of love. All the old traditions tell us that there is more than one path to the great goal, just as there is more than one road up every great mountain. And yet all roads meet at the top. So in the spiritual quest, there are several roads, all of which lead in due season to the one great end. There is a path of knowledge. True knowledge of divine things is one of the appointed paths to attainment. But that path is by no means for everyone. And there is the pathway of action, of organized activity, perhaps one had better say, and the world needs this too. But this again usually calls for a special gift and special circumstances in which to apply it. And there are others. The shortest and the easiest pathway of all is the pathway of love. This really is the royal road to the attainment of the great goal. It is the simplest of all the paths, and it is the most direct and the easiest too. And it is the one pathway which is open to all, everywhere, irrespective of what their personal conditions or surrounding circumstances may be. For every man, everywhere, the true initiation through the yoga of love awaits every day. And I'm Tina. My comments on this are that I'm I love how it talks about there's more than one path to the great goal. In the big book, it talks about that the path is broad, roomy, and all inclusive. It reminds me of that, that I don't get to decide anybody else's path, but I get to seek and pursue the path that calls to me. And when it says, so in the spiritual quest, there are several roads, all of which lead in due season to the one great end. So I like how it talks about action in the next paragraph, because that became my first path. I had a thinking problem, and I couldn't really think my way to a solution. I was miserable, out of ideas, didn't really want to live anymore. And I couldn't think my way out of that problem. But I luckily and gratefully found the 12-step path of action. And that is the path that got me reliably connected to my source. And now that I have that reliable path, I can spend time. I didn't really gravitate toward prayer and meditation in the beginning of my 12-step journey. But now, many years in, I do spend time in prayer and meditation each morning. And I am finding that Emmet Fox's work is very helpful to me. And I pass. Kathleen, you're muted.
Thank you. What a great message. And to contemplate these different ways. And it talks about in this reading that you just shared about that it's the pathway to love is accessible all the time, and it's accessible to everyone. And it in the last sentence you read awaits, and the yoga of love awaits every day, and I would say every moment. We have a choice every moment to choose love over fear. And fear is kind of what gets in the way of us doing that all the time. The big book talks a lot about fear. Talks about it's one of our categories of character defects, and it can be it's so accessible to us that, it's right there every second possible in our thinking. And it really does get in the way. We can't find the loving way and how to participate in a loving way if we are afraid. And generally, as addicts, we're so focused on and fearful that we won't get what we think we want, what we think we need, what we think is best for others. And this path, this 12-step path, you mentioned, Tina, action. And this 12-step path is so radical. And it really is a path of action that helps us to see all the fear in our attitudes and all just the wrong messages that we're carrying around and looking at the world through, and helps us to, through our actions, by taking our own inventories and by staying close to our higher power and by helping others, being of selfless service. It's in those actions that we learn what an attitude of loving is. true loving, what that actually looks like, and better yet, what it feels like, so that we can start to, I think of love begets love, so we can start to put love out into the world. And we often feel love when we do that, not just from others outside of ourselves, but we feel an attitude of love, which is, I think, going to be where we find the most peace. Um, because, love and fear don't exist at the same time. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Kathleen. I had one other little thought about that it is one pathway which is open to all everywhere, irrespective of what their personal conditions or surrounding circumstances may be. So one of the things that I had a lot of problem with, that brought me to my bottom, was I couldn't really sleep anymore. I was so obsessed and so in my head and spinning all the time, and so anxiety ridden, that I wasn't really sleeping. And finding these booklets, and specifically this concept of this yoga of love, really helped me with my sleep. And I still do it. I did it last night. So when I go to bed and I'm often spinning in my head about, it might just be the upcoming holiday event or whatever, and often worried about what do people think of me. That's a real common thing that my head might start spinning around. I can just start, and I do this. I start at one side of the US on the East Coast, and I move across the country. And I envision the people that I work the 12-step program with, or that I love, family members, surrounded by love, surrounded by light. And by the time I get to the middle of the country, I'm usually asleep. So this love is super powerful. This dwelling in love, invoking love, um, you know, acknowledging the power of love is something that's really transformed my actual chemistry. I mean, I don't, I mean, I was so anxious when I started working the 12 steps 15 years ago, that it was my every moment. It was like a radio station I couldn't turn away from. It was stuck in freak out mode. And this practice of just envisioning love surrounding all of those I care about, um, has really ushered in peace, and it still works for me when I need it. And I pass. Do you have any more thoughts before we move on?
Just that I'm lucky that I live in Colorado. That's halfway through the country. So I bet I'm getting some of that love that you're praying for me. I'll go ahead and read the next section. In metaphysics, we understand that divine love is the complete expression of all that is meant by the word religion, that having that, we have all, and lacking that, we have nothing. It therefore behooves us to give some little attention to the consideration of what we really mean when we talk about love. And that's a capital L, love. Of course, it goes without saying that we do not mean personal love, lowercase love. That is well in its own time and place. That is well in its own time and place, but it is not what we are considering here. In the Christian teaching, love stands for something much bigger and finer and more powerful than any merely personal sentiment. Unfortunately, as with many other spiritual ideas, there is no word in the language which is perfectly appropriate to express it. Material language is made to fit material needs, and it simply will not satisfactorily express true spiritual ideas. For these, we need the new tongue of which Jesus spoke. We seldom realize, I think, how very much we really are in the hands of the dictionary. We think certain thoughts, we have certain experiences, and then language, with its hard and fast boundaries, says, you shall not say that wonderful thing. You shall say only this. And we find on paper the pale, lifeless shadow of the thing that came to life in our soul. So there is really no word in modern English to express the true Christian idea of love. Our English Bible uses the word charity. And while no doubt this word fitted the need fairly well hundreds of years ago, it has since changed so much in connotation that there is now hardly a word in the dictionary more removed from the thing that we really wish to express. As cold as charity has become a byword, the very thought of charity, that is, of needing to receive charity, has alone led thousands of people to take their own lives sooner than have to contact the dreadful thing. And yet, in this true meaning, it should convey just what we mean by love. And I'll pause there. Well, I think what's got my attention here is we're talking, now we're moving into charity. Part of this reading is about really acknowledging that there's not really any language or words for love. Love is a subjective experience of, and it happens in connection and in charity. It leads us to charity. It happens in that, certainly for those of us in the 12 steps, it happens for us when we're in that 12th step. And, charity itself might be a word that gets loaded nowadays. I think that's what it's starting to say here. And as someone in the 12 steps, we give to give because it's our new way of life. It is what will transform us. It is what will change our chemistry. And we do it out of our need to not drink anymore, not do whatever it is that we do, or try to get on the outside to make us feel better on the inside. So I love that he's starting here. There's more to say, but he's really exploring what exactly is love, and how do we define it? And it's not a personal romantic love, which is what we all maybe are taught, or certainly by culture around us, but it's something more. And I'll pass.
Thank you. So, this idea that love stands for something much bigger and finer and more powerful than any merely personal sentiment. So, there's a statement in the big book that says, God is everything or nothing. What's your choice to be? So, and that's what I love about Emmet Fox and his materials, his readings, is that he was the first one that helped me to believe that that line that God is everything or nothing. What's your choice to be? So it's even in the things that look bad from my small perspective. Like, I know that my misery brought me to a bottom. And I believe that my higher power was in that higher power is actually in our suffering, that love is in our suffering ultimately. That there's always good present, even if we might be experiencing hard, what things that we consider to be hard, things that our small mind thinks of as bad, that this Emmet Fox teaching helps me to broaden my perspective and realize the bigness of God, the bigness of higher power, the bigness of love, that it's everything or nothing, even the things that look bad from my small perspective. And then when it starts talking about this, material language is made to fit material needs and simply will not satisfactorily express true spiritual ideas. So that reminds me of one of these concepts of old ideas that we learn about when we work the 12 steps, is that I have accumulated, like everyone, ideas about myself that are faulty, are wrong. When I hit my bottom, I would have said, basically, I'm a piece of crap. That was some old ideas that I concluded based on a lot of things that occurred. And I'm constantly challenged to stay in the truth. And the truth is that God or higher power or divine love is everywhere, always, working through everything for the best for everyone. I mean, it's that huge that there isn't something that's not touched by divine love. That just, it's not possible. It's all God is everything or nothing, good is everything or nothing, love is everything or nothing. That's what we learn in this with Emmet Fox. That's what Emmet Fox teaches us. That's what the founders of the 12 steps, the idea that they gleaned from Emmet Fox's teachings that they brought in to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that God is everything or nothing, that God is in everything. And that our old ideas are just mistakes. They're just mistakes, thinking errors. But they've dampened our souls. They've made us live smaller lives, right? Fearful based small lives. And we were meant to be, as it describes in the 12 and 12, intelligent agents of God's ever expanding creation. So when we lead these small, fear-based, teeny tiny lives, increasingly shrinking lives, we have blocked ourselves off. Our thinking, our faulty thinking has blocked ourselves off from living the truth and having this big, beautiful life that we were meant to have. And this idea of charity that's coming up here, some of the negative connotations about charity is possibly, I've got all this stuff and you've got a lot less stuff than me. And so I need to give you some of my stuff, and if I give you some of my stuff, I am going to be a good person, and I might even be a superior person. And so that's what our human thinking does with concepts like that. And what we learn in the big book is this idea of giving to give. loving to love, caring to care, which is really the essence, I think, of what this love, the yoga of love is. It's that we do this not to get any kind of acknowledgement or recognition or people to like us or think we're awesome. We do it because it keeps us near our source. It keeps us near this divine love that we cannot thrive without. And I pass. You have any other thoughts, Kathleen?
The only other thought is that what comes to mind is that we're channels of divine love, and all of us, are channels. And so we have this. If we can clear out that channel, then divine love's going to come through us, and everybody has the ability to do that, or the opportunity to do that. And so there is no inequality. It's not about somebody has something to give, as you were referring to, and somebody doesn't have anything to give, or they have so much less. And we, in the 12-step program in fellowship, we are these channels for each other as we grow and learn and become more effective in this spiritual way of life, this very, very different way of life than what we have known and what we were taught, and what often the world teaches. So that channel is, this path is a way to get that channel really clear, and then a way to keep it clear. And we don't, it's not our good thinking that comes through the channel. It's the divine's thinking and the divine's love. So that's all I got.
Can you please remind me where you stopped reading?
Perhaps on page 6 is the next
That's where
paragraph.
I should start?
Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps we can best approach the idea by saying that Christianity understands by love the idea of universal goodwill, but plus something very much more than ordinary goodwill. That's something which is nothing less than God Himself. Love is the motive power in mind, capital M. And it is the quality of love in mind that leads it to seek for fuller and fuller expression. For love always must be expressed. What we call service, to use the term that has happily come into very general use of late, is really love in action. The principal aspects of God are life, truth, and love. These are the great trinity in which mind expresses itself, and we shall see now in what sense they are one and the same thing. Life is existence, and this is the truth of being. Naturally, life must have free expression, and love is just the very thing, the perfect expression of life. In other words, what we call love is really the full and unrestricted expression of divine life itself. That is why it always means perfect peace, perfect holiness, perfect beauty, perfect joy, and why Jesus said, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. And my thoughts are on this are love is the motive power in mind. So the word motive to me means a couple things. One is it's moving, it's action. And that is definitely when I started to experience God, to experience love, is when I started taking action. And things were flowing through me. And what we call service, to use the term that has happily come into very general use of late, is really love in action. And that was the thing that my life was missing. And I came upon this idea of giving to get naturally. I was raised in a home, like almost everybody I know, where people were giving to get. It's kind of, I do this little shop vac analogy where there's two settings on a shop vac. One is suck and one is blow. And most people are stuck in suck. My family was stuck in suck. You know, how are we going to get liked or look good or appear successful and manage our image? So we were trying to get something on the outside to make us feel okay on the inside. It didn't work. And the hard thing about suck is that you always need to suck more. You know, you need to keep it coming. And that's true, as we see in addiction, is that you can't get enough of something on the outside to make you feel okay on the inside. So, but when I got to my bottom, when suck had beaten the liver out of me, and I got to the place where I had to wave the white flag, and I didn't really know what to do. But when the student's ready, the teacher appears, there was somebody who offered to sponsor and took me through the 12 steps. And that process flipped me, this particular shop vac, from suck to blow, you know, from get to give. And that was mind blowing. And that's why I love studying Emmet Fox, is because he keeps me in that mind blowing place. These ideas keep me in that place that I must live, which is this is really the opposite of what is all around us all the time. I've heard it talked about we live in a fallen world. It's not a judgment. It's just the reality that most of us have gotten stuck in suck. And we didn't even know it. So this turning to give and to contribute is a life-saving transition. And some of us needed saving and found it right on time. And for those of us that work the 12 steps, it's a motive power. It is action. And we work the steps fast, we get to the 12th step quick, and then we start practicing, most of us on a daily basis, giving to give. And we start with sponsoring other people. That is like kindergarten for us. It teaches us how to do this with someone that we're not enmeshed with in our families. It teaches us how to do this in a place that's much more free of triggers. You know, it's like it gives us a kind of a clean slate of where we can start practicing this giving to give, caring to care, not to people please, but to actually what real charity is: giving to give, caring to care, helping to help, not to get liked, loved, approved, just a simple, free gift, giving something that saved our lives to somebody who thinks they need that too, or who's asked for that help too. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Tina. Yeah, you mentioned the shop vac sucking, and how we don't even, because we were trained to do this, or this is what we've learned to do, we don't even know that that's what we're doing. As you said, we think we're giving, but we're not aware of all the layers of motives that we have for everything that we do. And that, points to that motive, and really back to, inventories, the fourth step, the 10th step, they reveal motives. But as long as we're looking at somebody else's side of the street rather than ours, then we're looking at their motives, which we're making them up because we're not them. We have our own set of motives, and it requires that we just focus on our side of the street to learn what those motives are. And then we can begin to have some choice about, well, do we want that to be how we show up in the world? Is that what we want to give? Is this illusion of giving? And that one of the things that I was contemplating from this part of the reading is, he's talking about life, the aspects of God. So life, truth, and love. And life is existence itself. It's here and now. It's right now. It's not in the future. It's not in the past. It's existence here and now. And truth is what is happening here and now. I think on a higher level, it's purely just the reality of here and now. But for our twisted thinking, that is a characteristic of a really severe thinking problem of addicts and codependents. Truth is only going to be found right now. And what we know right now, what's in front of us. It's not in what somebody else is thinking. It's not in we think is going to happen. It's not even about the past. Truth is about the reality of now. And that's one of the aspects of God. So guess what? That's where God is right now. God's not going to be in my thinking in the future or the past. And so if I want to stay close to my higher power and I want to know what the truth is, it's probably a good idea just to be in the right now. And my thinking doesn't really have a whole lot of use in the right now, except maybe just to function, but not a whole lot beyond that. But what does have power in the now is expression. And that's what he's talking about. The third thing, love is the expression of the divine life. So what is expression? In this spiritual path, it's action. And it's, how can I help in a helpful way? How can I give in a useful way? And being in the now, listening to the higher power guide us as to what that might be in any situation. And it, as we talk about in our primary purpose meeting, it may not be what other people want to hear or see or do. But we give, what's truthful is what's going to be helpful. So we're not running around trying to take care of everything or clean up everything or be the best at everything or make sure everybody likes us. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, okay, what's going to be useful right now? What's the truth here? And that's a hard thing to know in this human experience. What is the truth in any given moment, in any given situation? Because as what you were saying earlier, Tina, we don't have privy to this overarching massive thing that's going on. We only have this one little view from this one perspective. And so it's hard to know what the truth is unless we're really connected to higher power and it's happening right now. And how can we show up right now? And the 12 steps is wonderful for teaching us that, not only in instruction, not only in examples of all these people that have come before us, but also in the learning of an inventory and the learning of working with someone that suffers the way we do. That's where we begin to understand something different. And I'll pass there. Did you have any other comments? Okay, let's keep going. Now we see why the converse of love is fear, and why fear is the supreme enemy of mankind. Everybody recognizes this fact today. All academic psychology is turning its attention to the overcoming of fear. And most schools of philosophy, too, now teach that fear is the thing that has to be rooted out. And fear turns out to be simply the absence of love. Fear hath torment, but perfect love casteth out fear. The only reason we have any fear at all is because we do not love God enough. If we really loved God one half as much as we love ourselves, of what should we be afraid? A great mystic said, "Love God and do what you please," knowing that with the love of God in our hearts, our expression could only be perfect. And a modern seer has told us, you can get rid of any difficulty, whatever, from your life as soon as you can love God more than you love the error. I think I will stop. Well, I'll go one more. Anger, spite, resentment, and hate, all such things are just so many alternative expressions of fear. Jealousy, malice, and all uncharitableness devote a belief that there is not enough good to go around, and therefore, if the other fellow gets all that he wants of good, we shall have to go short. And what is this but to construct the expression of life in one's own soul? If you tie a ligament very tightly around a human limb, you know what happens. First, it becomes paralyzed, and ultimately, if the process is kept going long enough, the limb withers away altogether. Okay, so this is pretty clear. Now, love, I think what I see when it talks about we don't love God enough, in a practical, that means I love my ideas from this small one perspective more than I trust and love that God has got it. Like whatever's going on out there, God's got it. And that's trust, that's love, that's that's turning over one's life. And that's something that could be done from moment to moment, because we snatch it back all the time. And we snatch it back in all the ways that it's talking about in this second paragraph about resentment and hate and jealousy and anger. Those things are right there for us to just pick up. But the only reason we pick them up is because life is not going as we think it should be. And then we pick them up and we don't feel very good. And so then we turn around and drink to feel better, or we turn around and use sex to feel better, or food, or we use other people. If I could just get more attention from this person, I'll feel better. But what precedes that is this anger, jealousy, fear, all this stuff that we've picked up. And the reason we picked it up is because we stopped trusting God and we started loving our thinking and our bright ideas better than what is actually just happening. And what's just happening is God is either everything or God is nothing. And I'll hand it over to you, Tina.
Thank you, Kathleen. So let's see. Where did you start? Now we see why the converse or the principal aspects of God are. Oops, you're muted.
It is starting with the paragraph. Now we see why the converse of love is fear.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So, so this is really easy for me to see in myself because I want to go, when I'm feeling hurt, I want to go to they are bad, just like it says here. Anger, spite, resentment, hate. It's like I think that judging someone or condemning someone is going to keep me safe. But in fact, it does not do that. It shrinks my life. It shrinks my heart. The Grinch that stole Christmas reminds me of that teeny tiny shrunken heart, that if I shrink my heart enough, I'm going to probably end up doing all kind of grinchy things, right? And those things are eventually going to kick my hiney. That's because God is everything, right? I can't get away from God, even if I am in those ideas that they are bad. That thought in itself will eventually bring me back to needing love. It'll eventually hurt me bad enough that I will look back to love. So so now I don't have to follow they are bad very far anymore. I recognize it pretty immediately. And one of the times I recognize it is when I'm doing my prayers at night. And there are people I don't want to pray for. And they're exactly the people that I need to pray for. The people that I'm mad at are the people that I need to envision surrounded by love and light. Those are the people. Because, it's not really about winning or losing, but I win when I bring love or God into every little nook and cranny of my fear-based heart. I win. It keeps teaching me. And as soon as I start doing that, as soon as I start praying for those that I am mad at, for example, it transforms me. I feel a softening. I feel the truth of that reality. Yep, they're good. They're good. They're just one of the things that we learn as we work the 12 steps is we do this prayer. God, fill in the blank, is sick, suffering, and feels bad about themselves, just like me. Help me to show them or think about them, I could even say, the same patience, pity, the same tolerance, patience, and pity I would cheerfully grant a sick, suffering friend. Show me how I can be helpful. Save me from being angry. Thy will, not mine. And I always substitute the word love for thy will. Love's will, not mine, be done. So I don't have to even be afraid of my own negativity anymore, because I have experienced it taking me back to God, taking me back to love, taking me back to caring, giving to give and caring to care, time after time after time. It's not the boogeyman that it used to be. You know, I've stopped believing that there's a polarity in life, that there are things that are bad and there are things that are good. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. And bad only takes us to good. That's that is the purpose of bad. You know, we're on the way to good. And so this knowing that, okay, love God and do what you please. So that talks to me about the freedom that comes with this way of life. It's like, now that I've gotten over this whole idea that bad is king, bad's a servant to the real king, right? Bad isn't king. Then I don't have to wrestle with that as much as I used to. I don't have to wrestle with that when I'm thinking of other people. But most importantly, I don't even have to wrestle with that in my own self anymore. Then I get to do this thing that it talks about, knowing that with the love of God in our hearts, our expression could only be perfect. And this idea of loving God more than loving the error, it's like, it's just an error. It's a mistake. Thinking that people are bad it's a mistake. And you know, when we're toddlers, we make that mistake. We make more mistakes. And then when we grow spiritually, we don't have to make that mistake as much. And then we end up being this intelligent agent of God's ever expanding creation, because the boogeyman doesn't scare us anymore. We're just kind of like, okay, whatever. And we turn. If it comes up to scare us, we say, get behind us. And we just turn and do the next wonderful thing that God has in store for us each day. We don't let it take us down or take our attention, zap our energy, or give it any credence. It just doesn't scare us anymore. And I think I'll pass. Where did you stop reading, Kathleen?
The next paragraph is now the absence of love on page 9.
I'll start there. It's my turn to read, right? Okay. Now the absence of love has exactly this effect upon the soul. Condemnation, resentment, ill will are just so many constrictions upon the free flow of life. And since they are allowed to exist more or less in so many human souls, is it any wonder that the world is filled with sin, sickness, and death? That men and women grow old and tired and wrinkled and worn, and ultimately lose their bodies altogether? That the earth is desolated by wars and famine and pestilence? Thus, we begin to see the reason why divine science teaching, under whatever name it may have been given out, has always laid so much stress upon the outstanding importance of love. unless we build up within our own souls a real and practical love consciousness, our other activities will be more or less futile. If we have the impersonal love consciousness sufficiently well developed towards all, everything else will follow. Indeed, many students have found that very remarkable things have followed upon even a few days' special work done on the subject. All sorts of personal difficulties simply vanish away after people have treated themselves a while for love. As the months go along, their faces sometimes alter in a remarkable way, for the body is almost the first thing to respond to freedom from fear and resentment. People have told me that they have felt 20 years roll off their shoulders after treating themselves for a few days along these lines. And as they were their shoulders, they should know. So my thoughts about that are that it's true. When I'm in negative thoughts or thoughts that aren't loving, there is a heaviness. And I can feel it more quickly than I could. And it is less tolerable for me to spend any of my time in that place of bondage now that I've experienced this place of freedom and love. And I am, recovered. I'm not cured, right? So I go back to my small thinking at times. And what keeps me, that's why in the 12-step program, we say that steps 10, 11, and 12 are the design for living, right? We get recovered with steps 1 through 9. We stay recovered working steps 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis. And it's a practice, it is a practice of, and I've incorporated in my 11th step every morning some Emmet Fox reading, because it's very helpful for me to remember these truths about love. Love is everything or nothing. I mean, that's a line in the big book, but I like to know, okay, what does that really mean? I need to expand that occasionally. What does that really mean? And reading things like Emmet Fox's literature, and the founders of the 12 steps went and listened to him talk too. And he had these little booklets were available then too. So reading this stuff helps me to really spend some time in this miraculous and mind-blowing truth that God is everything or nothing. And even things that look bad from my small perspective are meant for good and can be used for good. And I can live in service of that. And when I'm living in service of that truth, my life is good. But I love it. It talks about in the big book of AA that most of us only have to feel the nip of the ringer once we've worked all 12 steps. We only have to go back and experience that old way of thinking momentarily. And then it's like, ouch. We remember that is not where I want to spend my life. That's painful. There's a line in the big book, I'm in the 12 and 12, and I'm going to not say it right, that great love and great suffering are our disciplinarians. We need no others. So it has this built-in feedback mechanism where as soon as I'm back in this faulty thinking, I go back. It's spiritual law. I don't get what I say I want. I get what I am. Kind of like the law of gravity. If I walk off the roof, I splat on the ground. If I'm back in that way of thinking, it's going to suck. But it's going to immediately help me to course correct. And I pass.
Thank you, Tina. Uh, yeah, that recovered, not cured. You know, he talks about in this reading just now about, I love the way he said it, treated themselves a while for love. Um, and for us, you know, for us as those of us that have chosen the 12 steps as a way of life, that treatment is step work, you know, and it's also giving to give, and it's being in these relationships with people that are still sick and suffering. It's step 12. Um, and then even just a few days of it can really change our the weight of our life, the burden of our life. And treating ourselves to love. So if love is divine and is the divine expression, it's what we just talked about. If love is the divine expression, then we're treating ourselves to love, to divinity, to God, whatever you want to call it. And that is the power of that. You know, now we're not in charge anymore, right? That's the whole thing here. That's what we're talking about is we don't have to carry around these burdens. Um, yeah, we can hand them over, and we should hand them over because if they're in our hands, they're not going to turn out very well. And I'm not telling you or anybody that. We know that because we learned it in our prior life of addiction and misery. And so um, you know, we can do it for a few days and it feels great. But if we pick it back up, if we go back to our old ways, we need something that's going to keep us going. It's going to help us to, you know, we need the action of charity or the action of what were we just talking about? Truth. And being life and expressing divinity to others. And so and love consciousness, you know, love is not a way of thinking. Love is not a way of, uh, you know, how we see other people. Love is a consciousness. Like that's when it begins to shift, is when we become it. You know, in each moment we live it. And the freedom from fear and resentment is the greatest freedom of all. It's not freedom from all my financial woes or freedom from this person that I'm now not going to be in a relationship with because they don't act the way I want them to, or they're drinking too much, or whatever it is. It's not freedom from any of that. It's freedom. You know, the freedom is being able to not have that burden because we've turned it all over, and we really don't know what's right, but something does know what's right. And I think that we have this choice every moment to do this, and we need fellows that are doing the same thing, and we need readings that remind us of that, and we need people to help teach how to do it because it was passed on to us. And I'm going to pause there. Do you have any other comments? Okay. All right. So the more you learn of your science, the more meetings you attend, and the more books you read, the more powerful becomes your thought and the more sensitive your soul. You cannot afford today to hold wrong thoughts that would have mattered very little 5 years ago. You will be much more severely punished for your lapse now than you would have been in the beginning. And this is altogether well. The pathway of love, which is open to everyone in all circumstances, and upon which you may step at any moment, at this moment, if you like, requires no formal introduction, has no entrance examination, and no conditions whatever. It calls for no expensive laboratory in which to work because your own daily life and your ordinary daily surroundings are your laboratory. It needs no reference library, no professional training, no external apparatus of any kind. All it does need is that you should begin steadfastly to reject from your mentality every thought of personal condemnation. You must condemn a wrong action, but not the actor. Of resentment for old injuries. I might have the wrong page. Oh, that's right. And of everything which is contrary to the law of love. You must not allow yourself to hate either person or group or nation or anything whatever. You must build up by faithful daily exercise the true love consciousness. And then all the rest of divine science will follow upon that. Love will heal you. Love will comfort you. Love will guide you. Love will illumine you. Love will redeem you from sin, sickness, and death, and lead you into the promised land and the place that is altogether lovely. Well, that is helpful. I love that. That's so beautiful. Um, I think what strikes me is that we are right here, right now, inside, in between these two ears. In this heart is my laboratory, and that life will give me exactly what I need for, to make all the experiments happen, and that I get to choose. And we all do. We don't need anything extravagant. We can do it under any circumstances whatsoever at all. Um, and we just work with this mentality. And I think what happened for me with the 12 steps is my actions, my really poor actions and really selfish actions waned pretty quickly. They went away pretty quickly. But the thinking, boy, that was to continue to think the way I was thinking of my brothers and sisters, to continue, and I mean that in a universal sense. The way that I was continuing to think about money and all the fear, and the way that I continued every area of our lives, right? And so I think the other thing I experienced, I think many of us do, is, we kind of might get cleaned up in one area of our life, but we're still holding on somewhere else. We're still not about love or love consciousness. Our mentality is still really off in a certain area, and we have to go and work it and see what's in there and clean that out and adopt a more loving, benevolent belief and stance. And so I think that was, that thinking is it take that it's right there, and we could work, we have so much opportunity to work it, and therefore so much opportunity to get closer to our higher power. And life being as it is just that. It's our custom made opportunity. Life is custom made for us to make this choice every moment of love, make this choice every moment of not trying to be in charge or thinking that we know what's best, and choosing to be close to our higher power and choosing to help our fellows. So I think those are all, um, yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Thanks, Kathleen. I don't have much to add. It's just an incredible passage. Um, what I will say is in the big book, it says that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And this pathway of love that was just read is beautiful, just as was described. I mean, that it's open to everyone in all circumstances and upon which you may step at any moment. Um, and that is the truth that I've experienced having worked these 12 steps, that everything is our workshop, everything is an opportunity. Um, and and there are endless opportunities. It's not like we even get, you know, just a few. We get as many as we need. You know, there's an abundance of everything. Um, and I think that's all I have to say about that. Do you have anything else, or I'll just go ahead and keep reading?
I just wanted to say quickly, if we're if we're thinking about other people and what they're doing and why they're doing it and what they should be doing, if we're over there, it's that we can't, this isn't something we're going to find over there. It's not something we're good. The choice is right here, right now. It's not over there. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. So,
So I think I think I'm supposed to be starting with, you must build up. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So,
No, actually, I read that one. It's the next one.
okay, you might say to yourself,
Yes.
okay, this is my favorite section of this booklet. I might not be able to read it without bawling. You may say to yourself, definitely, my mind is made up. I have measured the understanding, I have counted the cost, and I'm resolved to attain the goal by the yoga of love. I can do this and I will. Others may pursue knowledge to the farthest reaches of its wondrous growth. Others may organize great and marvelous enterprises for the benefit and uplifting of humanity, and still others may teach and heal and explore, or if they feel the call, may scale the austere lengths of asceticism. But I have chosen the yoga of love. Henceforth, my field of work is right here in my own consciousness, and all of my affairs, and all of my efforts and energy shall be directed to the cleansing and purifying of that from all that is not love. Moment by moment, day by day, week by week, I shall root out from my own heart every atom of condemnation of my brother man, no matter who or where he may be, or what he may have done, every atom of resentment for any unkindness or injustice that has ever been shown to me or to one that I love, every particle of jealousy of others, however cleverly it may be disguising itself, every smallest thought or feeling, in short, which is not an expression of divine love. My own heart is to be my workshop, my laboratory, and my great enterprise and contribution to humanity. Mind blowing. I love it. And and again, for those of us who want to quit and can't, it's not, I don't get to just hang out in my heart and my head. I have to take action. I have to carry this message to others who still suffer. Those of us with a spiritual malady, that's what we have to do. And this is a glorious, beautiful statement about what our hearts are becoming as we do this work, that we keep practicing this over and over and over. And we see it in ourselves, and we see it in our fellows, and we experience it, and we just keep practicing it. And I pass.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd loved this part of the reading. I just wanted to hang out here when you first shared with me this booklet. And I think what I'm focused on this, my great enterprise and contribution to humanity. What an incredible relief, frankly. Like this is what I need to do. I don't need to impress other people. I don't need to build an empire so that everybody likes me or admires me. I don't need to figure out anything except that this is a contribution. This is my greatest contribution to humanity. Not that those other things might not happen, but I'm not, they don't happen for me. They don't happen for my ego, my my fear. They happen as a result, possibly, but this is all I have to do. If I really want to contribute to humanity, this is it. And it's no small task. I mean, it gets easier, but the commitment, the dedication is, and I thank God that I'm one of those that, for whatever reason, I guess my misery, brought me to a place of dedication to this process of what I can do to, all these, an atom of resentment or any unkindness at all, like there's so much there to help me learn and course correct. So that's what I got. Do you have anything else before I read this passage? Okay. All right. So this is the yoga of love. And while it requires no equipment beyond the readiness to practice it, yet that readiness is likely to cost so much in the way of effective self-sacrifice that those who truly seek it are comparatively few. It is not only the simplest, it is the greatest of all the paths, great in magnitude of its individual results and great in the work that it accomplishes for the whole race. To practice effectively the yoga of love is the quickest way to demonstrate over all your own difficulties. And because your mind is part of the race mind, it is actually the quickest and most far-reaching way in which you can elevate the race too. It is the one path that is in practice open for everyone to enter at any moment. Here, the isolated student is at no disadvantage as compared with him who can command efficient teaching. Here, the poor man has perfect equality with the millionaire, and the dull have exactly the same advantages, no more and no less, as the intellectually brilliant. The plain man, earning a modest living in the factory or store, can practice the yoga of love right there among the very surroundings in which he finds himself. The housekeeper at home, the sailor on the high seas, the farmer in his field, the nurse or the doctor in the ward have all around them in their duties the perfect material for the yoga of love. The yoga of love. The only question is whether one is really willing to pay the price, is really prepared to put God first. Would you like me to read that quote?
Sure.
Many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it. If a man would give all the substance of his house for love, it would utterly be contemned. Okay. I'm not sure I have a lot to say here. I love the way that Emmett Fox is giving so many examples of how it's for everybody in all circumstances. He's really driving that home, and back to that elevating the race. That this is just the sheer power of it. If I choose to do that, every moment I choose to do this, the power of that for being helpful and useful is a wonderful message. And that is what I got.
Okay, so I ran up to get my big book because this really reminded me of on page 66. And I heard about this. I heard that the founders of the 12 steps, actually the precursor to AA, the Oxford group, I believe it was, could have been the Washingtonians. I think it was the Oxford group. They didn't think that this was just good for a few of us. They thought that this was an accomplishment for the whole race. I mean, and on page 66, it says we turn back to the list. So that's when we're doing our fifth step with our sponsor, and we've listed the things we're resentful about, and we've talked about other people, that kind of first half of the fifth step. But then we go and look at our defects. Where were we selfish, resentful, inconsiderate, afraid, et cetera, self-seeking. And it's when we do that, when we make that turn, when we go from what they did to us, quote unquote, to us, to what's going on with us, it says we turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. And what I heard about that statement was that the founders of the 12 steps didn't think it was just the key to our individual future. They believed it was the key to our collective future. This willingness for individuals to begin to look at their own mistakes, to look at their own defects, to look at their possible ways of how they could contribute to good, how they could contribute to love, how they could bring and give and build something with love, how they could build something with the God of their understanding. That this way of living was the key to our collective future. And so that's what came up for me when I saw that statement, the whole race. And yes, I love it that it is here at the end, it talks about how we can practice it we don't need any special equipment. We don't need to be in a special place. We don't need to be around certain people. We don't need to be, we can do it anywhere, anytime. And we can turn our attention. And for us that work the 12 steps, it's always about this. And really, this is what taught me about real love, doing the 12 steps. This idea that I learned in 12-step recovery about giving to give, for the sake of giving, not to get approval, not to get things to go my way, not to get liked, not to be impressive, but just merely for the sake of what ended up being a reliable path for feeling the nearness of my Creator. The fifth step promises talk about, I'm probably not going to be able to find them very quick, but they talk about that. They talk about how we go from having a understanding of God to having an experience of God. Many people, and I was not one of them, I didn't spend a lot of time in churches, but I think many people, but I did spend a lot of time in self-righteousness. I did spend a lot of time in thinking that I knew how people should behave, other people should behave. So what it says in the fifth step promises, we go from having an idea of God essentially to having an experience of God. And if we don't have this experience of love, we are going to suffer. That's just the facts. We are going to crave something. And that's the root of addiction and codependency. We're going to want to get liked. We're going to want to get loved. We're going to want to get more, fill in the blank, more of whatever, because we are meant and made to be these intelligent agents of God's ever expanding creation. And until we're living that purpose, it's just going to suck for us, and it's good. It's good that we're not going to be satisfied with nothing less than the very best, which is to be living this life of service, living in love, serving others. Because it does keep us reliably connected to our source. And I pass. Do you have any other thoughts before we close?
Just one, when you were talking about the fifth step, and it's also the magic that happens in the 10th step, where we're looking at the resentment, and then we hop over and look at, basically that we're looking at how we're turning to this human or this situation to get something that we think we need, like security or self-esteem or belonging or some ambition that we have. And I think in the process of, it was in that moment that I got it. Like I was like, oh, when I'm in resentment, I'm relying on some human solution, on some human person, on a human to give me the needs that only my higher power can give me. Only something bigger that knows a lot more than I do, that understands a lot more than I do, that is truth, is life itself, is love. And that's where I need to rely. And as long as I'm relying there, I'm not resentful, because I don't get, I'm not going to tell God, I'm not going to tell this divine thing what I think is best when I can't see anything except this small perspective. So that was such a great moment in this 12-step process. The freedom that came with that. Oh, I don't have to rely on this human for all these things that I think I need right now from this human or this circumstance. So that's what I got. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely. And I just want to end with the promises that are at the end of after we work all 12 steps, because I think it fits really well with this. It says, when we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands, we could say in love's hands, were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and I'll talk to you again soon.